that guy drinking beer?
The story begins on a bright morning as 19-year-old Kimberly drives her SUV onto a freeway, accompanied by her friends Shayna, Dano, and Frankie, all of whom are embarking on a spring break road trip to a beach. While waiting for the traffic to clear, Kimberly watches a large truck rumble past, loaded with heavy tree trunks secured by chains. She enjoys the moment like a normal teenager, listening to her friends joke and laugh in the back seat. As she drives, the radio plays a news report about the anniversary of the explosion of Flight 180, yet her attention is drawn to the erratic behavior of the logging truck ahead. Suddenly, a heavy chain on the truck snaps, causing a massive log to bounce off and smash through the windshield of a police cruiser trailing the truck, instantly killing Officer Burke. Kimberly watches in horror as a chain reaction ensues. As she screams, the vision abruptly ends. Kimberly finds herself back at the start of the traffic, breathing heavily and gripping the steering wheel, realizing she is still waiting for the traffic to move. Panicked by the vividness of the hallucination, Kimberly refuses to drive onto the highway, putting her car in park and blocking the vehicles behind her, much to the confusion of her friends. A line of furious drivers begins to form, and Officer Thomas Burke, the man she saw die in her vision, pulls up to her to investigate why she is obstructing traffic. While Burke tries to calm Kimberly, who is hysterical and claiming that they will all die if they go forward, the logging truck from her vision speeds past them on the highway. Moments later, a deafening crash echoes from down the road as the straps break exactly as she foresaw, and the massive pileup occurs just yards away. But tragically, a speeding truck that could not stop in time smashes into Kimberly's SUV, killing her 3 friends who were still inside, while Burke pulls Kimberly to safety just in time. Later that day, the survivors are gathered at the police station where they are questioned about the incident, and Kimberly tries to explain that she had a premonition, similar to Alex Browning, the survivor of Flight 180. Officer Burke, though professionally distant, seems particularly disturbed by her knowledge of the details, yet ultimately, they are all released to return to their lives, but Kimberly remains shaken, convinced that the danger has not passed. That evening, Evan Lewis, the lottery winner who escaped the crash, returns to his cluttered apartment, eager to cook a meal and move on with his life. He begins preparing food and puts on an expensive watch, unaware that a magnet has fallen into his meal. He puts the food into the microwave, and as he moves about the kitchen, his ring accidentally falls into the garbage disposal. While trying to retrieve it, his hand becomes stuck, and simultaneously, a fire breaks out on the stove due to the unattended pan, which is aided by the explosion of the microwave. He manages to free his hand just as the fire spreads, but in his panic, he tries to exit through the window onto the fire escape ladder, and this happens.
Jesus Christ!
The next morning, everyone learns of Evan's death, and Kimberly realizes that the pattern she feared is real, prompting her to research the Flight 180 survivors. She discovers that most of them died in mysterious accidents shortly after the plane crash, and the only remaining survivor is Clear Rivers, who has voluntarily checked herself into a psychiatric institution to avoid danger. Kimberly decides to speak to Clear to know how to stop the cycle of death. She drives to the institution, where she finds Clear living in a padded room, stripped of any objects that could potentially cause an accident. Clear is initially cold and dismissive, telling Kimberly that there is no way to stop death and that any attempt to intervene only delays the inevitable. She explains that by saving people from the highway, Kimberly has merely created a new list and death will come for them in the order they were meant to die. Despite Kimberly's pleas for help, Clear refuses to leave her safe haven. Disheartened, Kimberly leaves, but Clear is visibly shaken by the encounter. Realizing she cannot hide forever, she joins forces with Kimberly and Burke to help save the others. But Kimberly is soon attacked by a flock of pigeons, a telltale sign that death's game is in full swing.
Did you see that?
Meanwhile, Tim, The 15-year-old boy who survived the crash visits the dentist accompanied by his mother, Nora. While he is in the chair, the dentist injects him with medicine and sets up a plastic fish above the chair to distract him. But just then this happens. The duo leave the clinic, relieved that the ordeal is over. But just then, this happens. Following Tim's death, Kimberly gathers the remaining survivors, Nora, Kat, Rory, Eugene, and Officer Burke, to explain the situation and try to find a way to break the design. The group was initially skeptical and hostile, particularly the pragmatic Eugene, who refuses to believe in supernatural forces. Clear explains the rules. They are dying in the reverse order of how they would have died in the pileup, and unless they spot the signs, they are all doomed. The next in death's list is Nora, but she cares little about death, as she longs to reunite with her son in the afterlife. As the group leaves the room, Nora steps into an elevator with Eugene and a man carrying prosthetic limbs and hooks. Back inside the room, Rory tumbles upon some hardware equipments, and to their shock, they see a sign of a man with a hook, indicating how Nora will die. They try to warn her, but the phone drops, and this way, her hair becomes entangled in the hooks, and she is dragged backward as the elevator doors attempt to close. The mechanism malfunctions, clamping down on her neck, and despite the frantic efforts of Eugene and the others, she faces a brutal death. Panicked by her death, Eugene loses his mind and snatches Burke's gun, willing to end his own life. But astonishingly, the gun does not fire even though it was fully loaded.
6 in a row? Never.
Terrified by Nora's gruesome death, the survivors regroup and try to find a loophole in death's design. Clear takes them to a guy named William Bloodworth, who knows all about death. After some pleading from Kimberly, he tells them that only a new life can defeat death.
Only new life can defeat death.
They deduce that if a new life is brought into the world that was not meant to be part of the design, it might disrupt the cycle. They focus on Isabella, a pregnant woman who they believe was on the highway during the pileup but survived. They theorize that if Isabella gives birth, her baby will represent new life that death cannot touch, thereby saving the rest of them. Officer Burke uses police resources to track Isabella's location, discovering she has been taken into custody for driving a stolen van and is currently at a police station. The group races towards her, hoping to protect her until the baby is born. Meanwhile, Isabella's water breaks, and the officer is forced to transport her to the hospital, and Burke is notified of this development, and he changes course to intercept her. During the discussion, the group discovers a startling connection. They have all cheated death before, indirectly, due to the actions of the Flight 180 survivors. For instance, Eugene, who teaches in college, was replaced by another teacher who survived Flight 180 and was shot that very day, thereby saving Eugene indirectly. This revelation confirms that the ripple effects of Flight 180 are still active, and death is tying up loose ends.
It's tying up all the loose ends, sealing the rift once and for all.
As they drive down a rural road, the group barely avoids collision with Isabella's van, causing the vehicle to swerve off the road and crash into a farm field. A sharp piece of PVC pipe from a nearby construction stack penetrates the van, passing just inches from Kat's head, pinning her to the seat. Eugene is deeply wounded, and Kat is trapped, unable to move. Rescuers and medics arrive on the scene and transport Eugene to hospital and try to free Kat. A local boy named Brian arrives at the scene but is saved by Rory just as he was about to get hit by a van.
Watch it!
Simultaneously, reporters arrive and the gas tank of their car gets impaled by a sharp object, leaking gas, which gets unnoticed by all. As the rescuer works, the vibration of the saw triggers the airbag in the steering wheel, pushing Kat's head backward with immense force, impaling her skull onto the sharp pipe.
I'll just put it on quiet mode.
That would be good.
The cigarette she was holding drops from her hand into a trail of leaking gasoline, igniting fire that travels rapidly toward the news van, which explodes with tremendous force. The explosion sends a barbed wire fence flying through the air, slicing Rory into pieces. Kimberly, Clear, and Burke stare in shock as Rory's body falls apart. They rush to the hospital where Isabella is giving birth, convinced that the baby is their salvation. During their journey, Kimberly has another premonition where she sees a woman, supposedly Isabella, drowning in a white van and Dr. Calerjan trying to choke her after she is rescued. Simultaneously, Eugene is placed in a room to recover, paranoid and fearful that death is coming for him next. Burke grabs hold of Dr. Calerjan, and inside the maternity ward, Isabella successfully gives birth to a healthy baby boy.
It's a boy.
Kimberly and Burke watch with joy, feeling relieved, believing that the new life has broken the chain. They embrace, thinking the nightmare is finally over. However, Kimberly is struck by a sudden realization. In her original premonition of the highway pileup, she never saw Isabella die in the accident, and therefore, her survival and her baby have no effect on death's list. Realizing their mistake, Kimberly tries to contact Clear, who has just arrived at Eugene's room. Inside the room, the vents have been closed, and a leak from the oxygen tanks has filled the air with flammable gas. Clear opens the door to Eugene's room, and the spark from the light switch ignites the oxygen-saturated room. A massive fireball erupts, instantly incinerating Eugene in his bed and engulfing Clear as she stands in the doorway. Kimberly and Burke, running down the hallway, are thrown back by the blast, witnessing the deaths of their last two allies. It suddenly dawns on her that the woman in the white van is she herself, and Dr. Calerjan was trying to help her. She understands that the only way to truly break the design is for her to die and then be resuscitated, thereby technically dying and granting herself new life.
Get Calerjan.
Just then, she sees an ambulance nearby and makes a desperate decision. She jumps into the driver's seat and speeds toward a nearby lake. Kimberly drives the ambulance off the pier, plunging it into the icy waters of the lake. The van sinks rapidly, and Kimberly allows herself to drown, her heart stopping as the water fills the van. Burke dives into the water and swims down to the wreck, pulling her lifeless body from the driver's seat. She is immediately rushed to the hospital, and although her heartbeat flatlined, she was successfully brought back by Dr. Calerjan. By dying and returning, she has broken the cycle of death, and both she and Burke are finally safe. Sometime later, Kimberly and Burke are invited to a barbecue hosted by the Gibb family, the farmer and his son Brian, who helped them after the van crash. The atmosphere is relaxed and celebratory until Brian's father reveals that Brian was actually supposed to be hit by a van earlier, but was saved by Rory, revealing that he too had cheated death. Suddenly, the nearby grill explodes, violently killing the boy. The camera cuts away just as the explosion occurs, and a severed arm lands on the table in front of the mother, confirming that while Kimberly and Burke may have broken their specific cycle, death's list for others continues unabated. If you like this recap, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching till the end.